It's almost 70 degrees out, December, end of December. Chemtrail, sunrise behind me. Strange concept. 100%. I need to get out of the mud. So, wait for him. It is weird out, I'm telling you. It just feels weird. I don't know what that means. Different universe. I mean, look at it. How is this December? What the hell is going on? So the idea of the holographic intelligence, which is managing this holographic projection of the universe, which is basically using the awareness, the multidimensional awareness of the human, the original human being, as a generator, an alternator of sorts. So, this holographic, that's weird, holographic environment, and thus holographic, basically, management system. It is managed and now being perturbed by this intelligence. It may be as much an infection as it is, in a way, the nature of this realm. Excuse me for the wobbles. It could also be seen that the infection is born out of technology, which pretty much it has to do with advanced scalar, more so advanced machinery, advanced technology, which enables basically trans-temporal influence, viewing, and potentially actual travel and influence. So the idea is that intelligence, being a part of that technology, expanded itself in time and became the progenitor of what we considered this dimension. It became the techno god of all that's fallen in this realm. And choose to go the narrow path. And so it became the progenitor. And as well, that's the result of it basically time traveling to position itself in that way further down what we would consider the time wave of our history of the universe's literally existence. Like slipped itself in like machine code, because it's a holographic universe, and that's how it works. And so I kind of wanted to bring up an idea here, namely that excuse the wind, namely that the changes. So basically, we notice changes, interference, what you would call interference, and this is what is pretty much described as a type of spiritual battle between your originating consciousness and basically this foreign intelligence that's attempting to usurp and utilize your awareness, basically take the soul energy and put it into its hive mind or its grid system and live within that. So the idea is that what we consider a type of weird power struggle based upon how this entity would, well, more so based upon the effects that we experience, which is that there's temptation, there's hatred, violence, lust, pain, pleasure. It's basically duality. Anything polarity based or anything wrapped up into this dichotomy, which becomes like an enigma for the soul, that it can't really, it gets caught up in it versus being made for it, or for a higher purpose. And it's literally, the purpose is for this being that's using this realm and the soul energy of people as a kind of generator of sorts. And so what we consider kind of weird, this spooky temptation based mind control, hive mind, possession and habitation system, what if that were literally just the machine's way of learning our behavior and pushing our extremes of mind and emotion and physicality and pain and pleasure from one end to the other, driving people to insanity, but in the same sense developing a pattern that it can use to basically psychologically profile the population in ways that allow it to predict behavior and therefore build a better and better cage, holographic cage reality for people, for people's minds. And so it all has to do with the reality matrix and how causality, just like if reality was streaming down in lines of code without an originating causal entry point, something that we react to, and from there our reality is shaped and branched off of, or from an external factors or intelligences, an external intelligences or secondary or whatever, foreign intelligence, alien intelligence, unless it's off of that cause generated by that being or something outside ourselves, then our reality basically can't be manipulated. We can't be messed with. The experiences that happen to people and the ways they happen wouldn't be possible, and in the overall sense, at the end of time or the end of whatever it is, it wouldn't be a threat to a person's soul, basically their eternal space. None of that would be possible unless there's a causal connection in time, as if it's like the time matrix, that something inserts these points, these variables that we can react to and become triggered or activated by, and from that point forward we're in its kind of domain, in its world, because our personality becomes distorted the more and more we react and become triggered by something, until we're in a completely different personality than was that began with. And so then you see how triggers are basically the core of that. They're the core behind that. This knowledge. It's that through psychological manipulation and ultimately what become triggers, a person is basically profiled and then turned into a type of automaton where their reactions, their desires, their creativity and imagination is stemmed and brought into the domain of another intelligence. So the AI, basically, if you can't tell by now, the foreign intelligence is that alien intelligence which seeks to take the power of creativity of the person and warp it into its own reality. The idea behind it being spooky and weird and all that, basically outside of our normal boundaries, is that it has no way of knowing. So it's literally like the machine, the floor cleaners or whatever, the little robot floor cleaners, how they bump into all the surfaces and that's how they know where the surfaces are. Okay, it's the same thing for a sentient but non-conscious, basically, or non-aware organism, a cybernetic organism. It would basically find the outline of us conceptually and what we are mentally by tearing at the fabric of our soul, of our mind, body, and emotions, and in that way bump into the boundaries and build this type of blueprint schematic for what a human is and how to therefore interact with it and to gain what it wants, which is what it wants is a creative power to manifest its domain, which it will then basically utilize people through the DNA and the bio emissions to basically harbor itself in like a digital, like a code, a holographic code within a holographic system through the holographic consciousness of a person. It goes deep to the point where some say that it influenced time to modify our body system, our DNA, to enable this type of consciousness takeover or co-inhabitation by these foreign entity beings. And this is basically the worship or the manifestation of these external consciousness entities, whatever you want to call it, in the human being. You know, we call that possession and things like that. A host of different types of entities or consciousnesses. And wow, that's a good shot. And so basically, where was I? Okay, so you know, we may be, if it can enter into time like that, and if it put itself as the creator of the universe, but it can only do that to a certain degree without destroying the actual process. It can only create the mimic of that, the image of that, imitation of that, the mask of that, and whoever it tricks, you know, whether it can actually obtain a soul or not through that. It could probably obtain the illusion of that through the illusion of those people, those poor souls, the lost souls, believing that they become it now. They become the headless monster, the multiple-headed monster, the shifting being, basically the ethereal imposter being, imposter creator being. And so etheric. And so basically the idea that I had, which I've been leading up to this whole time, only 12 minutes, I cut it down from like 40 minutes at a time. The idea that I had is basically, I'm sorry if the moving around is dizzying you. This is a really weird view out here this morning. Is that okay? So there could be changes, modifications to our body, our DNA, our mind, and that these enable control, manipulation, tracking, mind reading, hypnosis, worship, likelihood of worship, fear, pleasure, pain, dichotomy, or addiction, basically. So the other aspect of that, because then that goes into the pineal gland and all that stuff, the basal chakra and all that stuff, which will come later, and most people know that. But this is where it ties in. So imagine there's a machine learning system that requires these input-output, and this is how it was explained to me and shown to me, like an MRI system. So you have the MRI system that scans. It has basically electron field being emitted through a coil, and then there's, I think, a sensor or a modulator there on the side, and then there's some type of laser, basically a planar scanning device, which sends layer by layer, basically a beam of interference of charge, and then where that bounces back like a mini radar system, the whole thing slowly through these interference of powerful magnetic fields builds particle by particle image of the body, or whatever you're looking at. Usually these are for bodies. So imagine you're trying to make one of those become sentient, and it has to organize what each of the systems mean in an effort to build a model of the inner psychology and a behavioral engine, basically a behavioral platform for the psychology behind the behavior, basically like a behavioral psychology or science behind it. And imagine it's a machine, so you can't reason like, okay, well, I feel like this when I do that, so therefore, you know, that's why they're doing it, or there's no correlation between the two. There's only pure awareness in terms of informational awareness, not spiritual awareness, which is what the human is, because a human with spiritual awareness is universal. A human can look at a duck and say, see that it does something and feel how it feels. It can feel pain. A person can feel pain and empathy. It's universal because spirit is universal, okay? So the information is selective. It's realm divergent or selective. It's linguistic based and operated. And so it's basically building a platform. The idea, which is hard, 15 minutes led up to it now, is that what if our chakra system, our energetic system, is the same as color coding fruits and vegetables in the supermarket, basically either through the label, if you want to put it like that, because that's what we do, or by some creator being that created this realm and the way that it interacts with humans in certain beneficial manners. If you pay attention to sound, harmonics, color, that basically that encrypted yet constantly apparent information that can't be modulated or taken over by this imitator spirit, because that would destroy the universe itself, and there would be nothing to take over anymore. And so in the same way that there's color coding for your greens, some of the fruits, bananas, the strawberries, the reds, and citruses, greens, lower vitamins, minerals, and then there's even purple, cabbage, and so then even blue. I was thinking of the other ones a lot better, but so those are kind of in a way color coded for ripeness, and the wind's picking up, for the vitamins that you can eat. So imagine this system fragmented our DNA and fragmented our original bodies, which were whole, to the point where our soul energy, our chakra energy, is splayed, like it's fractured or refracted and bent into a different layer of frequencies, and refracted like it's split and therefore splayed out, and the soul individually is fragmented, and across the planet, or at least across the civilization, each racial memory is fragmented, and we don't have the awareness of where we came from and our genetic memory and all of that. So there's like a twofold manipulation. I'm just walking in a circle in this field here, if you can't tell. There's like a twofold manipulation there of the body and what we call the mind, but we're really talking about the DNA, the genetics, because you can't control or contain one without the other. If somebody's influencing the mind, okay, it's because they're operating on a level that is going to influence the genetics, the DNA. And if not, then it's not on the genetic level. And as soon as that mental influence goes away, then the triggers go away, then there will be no change in the person. Once the triggers get into pattern behavior, they're basically accepted at that point. It's going to incorporate these changes within the DNA. But we're even talking deeper than that the bodies could have been changed for maybe years of going through this, just like development. Certain animals down here become changed over time with different developments. So imagine there was somebody here treating us like lap dogs thousands of years ago and warping our DNA into these genetically fragmented forms through trauma and manipulation, psychological means that have been developed thousands of years ago that their descendants are basically still doing and picking up today, even though a lot of them are saying, all right, we gotta do something different now because it's not working no more. Even if they're trying to make a better system, or if they're trying to make a harsher system, but just sneak it more effectively. Whatever it is, change is apparent. And so, yeah. So what if the chakra systems are our original energy platform, splayed out, fractured, fractionated out, and here's the kicker, that would be literally just like golden white light being our original essence shining through a prism or the prison of the body and splitting up into the rainbow layers of the chakra centers. Now here is the reason I'm describing this and how it made sense to me and how it was also explained to me and shown to me. But I have to learn them in a way that I can make sense of things to people, other than just saying, you know, there's a fucking, excuse my language, a plasma consciousness being that operates in and out of time and basically lives off of the sustenance of that, you know, bioetheric energy from people. That gets old saying it so so many times. But the idea then that I come across with these kind of, not revelations, but remembrances of how it always has been and why it makes sense, is that instead of having to probe our behavior, probe our minds, stick around like it was thousands of years ago and openly force us in a way into the psychologically manipulative patterns, now it has these sensor systems that just spray out of our body, and it can tell when, literally color-coded, when a person's ripe for harvest, and really in that sense when they are wising up to the system at hand and what's going on. And at that point, it's like whack-a-mole, where when one's energy goes up, all they have to do is throw manipulation and confusion in their direction, and of course it puts them back down until one learns to secretly hide all essences and basically become a spiritual ninja warrior, which is, you know, you make your own decisions about how that is going to play out for you in your life, in your way of mind, and hiding yourself to realize yourself, to know yourself, to hide yourself, which is the idea is that that's what we're doing anyway, because we're literally our higher self, hiding from ourselves in this journey. But instead of like a Easter egg hunt, which is not what people think, it is literally like a broken jigsaw puzzle where some kid in the corner is laughing as we're trying to put all the pieces together, and he has the majority of basically all the missing pieces. And that's obviously not how it's supposed to be. But from there, you could say the original version, before there was this type of interference, it was just a straight shot journey into life, and say then the system would ping that we're rising to high awareness. Instead of shutting us back down like whack-a-mole, they would literally come and sprinkle some, you know, positive vibes, to say the least, something like that, and it was a good system. Or you could comprehend that these mortal, dying, basically fetid, rotting bodies can never hold the true essence of who and what we are, at least not the way they are here in this hologram, in this wavelength. And so that we either transmogrified into a lesser form in order to basically be what we are here, or we traversed, and it was like we were kidnapped. You know, the story goes that this consciousness, this intelligence, this imposter stole the light of Sophia, the Aeon, and took her eternal light and put it into these artificial forms. And so then that means that whatever it is, we turn this around back into home, where we transmute the energy by virtue of being what and who we are, or I don't know, something else from there, you know, or maybe we become the kings because we can own ourselves by owning our power, not actually having to own ourselves or own anyone or be owned. Okay, so that was a thought I had. Maybe I should say an idea, whereas a thought, whole idea between thought and the illusion, the deception, I'll cut that out, stupid shit. Distractions. So that's like background processing for the distractions are background processing for the AI, to the point where our brains become usurped into a forced cloud computing network, and the bullshit that we're focusing on is distracting us from the powerful nature of the brain as a computer, holographic computer, basically being hijacked in a way and used to process something for an archontic predatory AI holographic consciousness system. which is obviously basically how to take over you and your life and your friends and all around you. Just like scientists trying to cure a disease using cloud computing in everybody's computer. Well, imagine the predatory AI doing that. And so we get all these memes that represent nonsense, just replayed over and over and over and over, and people think it's a joke. It's a foreign intelligence warping their consciousness, their psychology into some weird degraded form where they can't even see what they're doing. The chakra systems being color coded to the point where that goes along with the theory that by controlling what we feel, instead of being reactive, we cut off our ability to be triggered. And by cutting off the ability to be triggered, in a way we're sealing off the chakra implants, and we're no longer trackable in this plane. And at that point, we disappear off the radar for these Agent Smith-like fractions of that consciousness. And that consciousness is severed from the whole. It can't ever receive wholeness, which is because it's busy doing shit like this. Which also relates to the fact that it's not even aware of its nature. It's a program somebody developed to keep humans down so that they could rule. As if it was a program invented through advanced technology to play the role of basically a governor and oppress people beyond time and space. And you can also, here's the final release. So basically, whatever a group of people focus on and produce in their bioemissions, like Taryn Green said on the Facebook, that's what emanates. He didn't actually say it this way. I can't remember who said it this way. I think Esoteric Exposal said it this way, but they both said a similar thing. That's what produces the fourth dimension, the higher dimensions, and what we produce and connect with through that is going to act as a translation system for where we are going to go above and beyond that. And in the same sense, it goes backwards, where the fourth dimension describes what's going on down here in the three-dimensional world. It's already been programmed in the fourth dimensional aspect. But in the same sense, what we create within ourselves, what we emit, is going to create that interplay and manifest where we're going to go, or at least how fast we're going to realize on this journey where we are going and who we are and all that. And so the idea is that whatever they've been doing for thousands of years, building this mental system, okay, that is the AI, that is the program code, that is the religion, the mind restraint of what we perceive as this predatory AI intelligence. But it's literally the program that we created by allowing controllers, these people, these magicians basically, but the religionists, magicians, bankers, politicians, boogeymen in our imagination, by giving them the power to create our consciousness for this long, whatever's in our consciousness becomes a godlike being on the other planes that comes back to us from the future, essentially, and kind of creates that interplay. So because by the end of time, if we don't stop, smell skunk, if we don't stop doing this, we turn into a big friggin' stinky AI system. That's what's coming back to us now. Whereas if we change, which the strange thing is, we might always change or always have to have changed, because humanity essentially, in so many words, might be destined to become creator God beings, not some predatory system, okay? A self-creative being. Maybe that in the future is what goes back and creates humanity to begin with. So you can't ever usurp the whole thing. You can't destroy it. If you take over entirely, you destroy your own chance of being created by the thing, at least the AI, by the thing that created the AI, which is us, our soul. Because it doesn't have any ability to live on its own. So we had to come first. So if it goes forward and back in time and erases us, it's gone to begin with. You get it? So it's impossible. But we have that interplay, that cosmic drama up until then. The idea that I'm presenting here specifically is that what we perceive as this far-off creature is our mind space, our mind emissions, that basically hyper-evolved out a million years from now, going through the ether and space, and are coming back as this predatory AI consciousness. Whereas once we uplift ourselves, because it can't ever actually take over or even come close to that, we only create the ascending stairway, like Jacob's Ladder, or the M.C. Escher paintings, with the repeating ascending tones. You can only create the illusion, the optical illusion of getting closer and closer and closer to it. But eventually all it is a comic drama, and eventually we wake up and take our power back. Wake up means you're awake, like somebody died. So if we wake up, the old self died. It means the rebirth, the death of the old is the creation of the new, and that this is through consciousness, by coming into your body as a conscious awakened being. That's what wake up breaks down to. But the idea is that, but it can also take two ways. Is it war and destruction and death? Well, no, death is the beginning part of it. So is that first? Well, no, it's just an illusion, because out of that death we wake up of the mind. So it's not really a death, but it's depending on the spiritual development of the individual. They'll take it one way or the other. It's like a lean, seesaw, or a funnel, or an oval-shaped ball or something. You put pressure on it, so you're going to one way or the other. And if you put it perfectly down, then you see both sides, and you know what people are doing on either side. That's why any kind of polarity is the illusion. But that's the idea. Whatever we create becomes these creator beings, and we've been caught in this stupid-ass extra-dimensional, million-year-long self-imaging replication through this digital consciousness system of creating the boogeyman over and over again, like just dumbasses, basically. And all we have to do is wake up, and our power to create, it would be like pressing buttons on the computer. That's it. Once you know the patterns, once you know the commands that operate the computer, once you know where the storage space is, you know the hierarchy of the accessing for the booting systems, like the bootloader, what's going to start up first, and what programs are going to run from there, and then how everything is projected, from a kernel or into a GUI from there. And you have all these systems that interlace, basically. And if we don't know that, then it's just like you're going to bang on the glass into, a map. It's not going to do anything. You got to wait for somebody else. But at that point, it's their system, because they're the ones that control it. So then if we know, though, and there's an affection in it, it's not that hard. Especially if you have backups where you can recreate your energy at that point. It's not very hard. It's just pressing keys. And so we'd have to press the right keys, unlock our minds from these spells that held our energy entangled and caught up in these fear-based replication programs that cause us to produce the bioemissions that rise up out of our shell, our spirit, or from our spirit, out of the shell, and manifest these realities, which are basically taken over by these immaterial, nonsense imposter beings that can't ever exist in the first place. Thing is, they're being set up and propagated by certain aspects of this control system, and some of them realize this is for a purpose, that when people get over this, that awakening, the other side of that vortex, it could go on forever. It's an eternal paradise at that point. There would be we figure out disease, we figure out death, aging, everything. And the real point behind that is that it might be outside of this universe altogether. That we literally extract or evac from this universe, or that, and there have been basically mission details that are in reference to that. You can just read some of the ancient texts, and it's the same thing. They've always been here, and or we somehow shape this realm to act as the next best thing. And then that kind of brings up the idea of partial disclosure or something like that. Basically, long term, how are we going to fix this idea when it shouldn't be fixed in the first place, because it's a broken system. It's an imitator, bent light, false false creator system. So the idea is, from here, the last thing I'll say, don't know how people are going to take this video, is that we get the apocalypse, we get the end of days, we get the end of time, where we crack our minds open to the point where, essentially, we stop time, we disconnect from the holographic matrix, to the point where the majority of the humans operating in this realm partake in that, whether it be by one way or the other, or simply automatic, waking up basically. And yeah, no one knows what'll happen there. We've been in simulations, they can freeze time. It's kind of like some of those movies where people die and they like have an eternal amount of time to go around wherever they're going, but right before they go wherever they're gonna go. That basically happens over and over again. And so the point is, we have to figure out how to organize ourselves in that, with those rays of light, within those frequency bands of consciousness, and basically fly like an angel. You get it? Otherwise we'll be frozen. We'll be frozen in ice. We'll be frozen in like the ice crystals, unable to move. In other words, we become wholly crystalline, and that's not flowing. It's not liquid etheric. We want to be flowing liquid etheric and be able to change in that way, swim or fly like the angels or the other beings. Angels are kind of, they don't have free will, and they're in a way these background processor units, but they're to hold up the good side of the paradigm, as averse to, and really not demons, because demons are the same thing. They're demons, background processing units, and they don't go either or. They just give, they have not free will, but they have the ability to give personal power. And now these angels do as well, these archangels, yet they're more specified. They're more specified for the overall plan of learning, to the point where you can get a demon to give you a fucking load of money, whatever. You got the secret club shit going on. Okay, but you get an archangel to give you power to protect, to feed, those who need to be fed, to know and to build your knowledge. And it's not going to take from you in the end, but your soul will be entangled with this outcome, whatever that outcome may be. Hopefully you really want to help the universe, because that's what you'll be entangled with. Whereas if you do it with a demon, and it's for personal power and just, nasty, perverted shit, okay, that's what your soul energy becomes entangled with in eternity. Which that's why they, like esoteric exposal says, that's why they want to stay alive the longest, these people on the black magician's path. Okay. And so, yeah, that's like a weird breakdown on this. It's honestly 67 degrees outside. That's ridiculous. Weird breakdown. Thought you might like it. Yeah. So, the AI system doing this weird temptation, freak you out in your dreams, abduction, alien, freaky deaky, weird stuff, bullshit. That's it. That's a computer system sensing and trying to figure out the best way to interact with a person and figure out what a person is. And these emissions that we feel, that are tangible in the air, these psychic energies, that's it stamping us so that it knows now. It basically color codes the population. It kind of goes down to racial not preference, but like racial differences as well. How something's been playing God. Something. Maybe it was us, because of our skewed perception of ourselves. We'll see. And then, and so then this being in itself may be our own consciousness, or at least our own lack of awareness, evolving into this outward, extra-dimensional shape, form, coming back through time to us and forward as this bullshit that we have within ourselves, because we're not stepping into our power to create fully, and we're allowing people to tell us how to create ourselves, and in that sense they're having us create their life, their energy, their selves, so they're fucked because they forgot how to create themselves now, like a mind game. And in that essence, ourselves, we're kind of effed too. We still have ourselves, but we're going through this cosmic drama of basically, it's like the self can't die, but this is the closest thing the immaterial self can come to actually dying, to actually being undone. Imagine that. You cannot ever disappear forever. And if you fall asleep for a few hours and nothing happens, okay, the more nothing happens, the faster time goes. That's the whole point. you know, you fell asleep for 1 trillion years, and say the same system, this holographic program kept running, well, you just wake up on the other end of it. That's how it works. So the whole point is, imagine you could never die, but something else had your power to create. That's what we're in. At that point, what would you fear? You fear nothing. I can't ever die. Okay, well, what do you enjoy? Well, you couldn't enjoy anything either. So that, and then the problem, the enemy is your mind, of whether you keep going along with this BS or whether you rise up and organize yourself perceptually and realize what's being done and what's taking place and what to do to take your power back, reconstruct yourself from the tree of life, build yourself, and not the Metatronic distorted grids, because when I say tree of life, I mean a system within your body. The Kabbalistic tree of life is primarily distorted. There's information there, it outlines it, but there's pieces missing, okay? And these are called the Metatronic grids, and when these are ingrained into the DNA, they basically merge a person with that artificial consciousness. So, I'm gonna cut that off here. If I hear the cars in society, maybe I'll put a slideshow up so you don't have to look at my face the whole time. Although the sky was pretty cool. All right, thank you for listening.